Hey everybody, this is Dianne. Welcome back to Biters.
Hey everybody, this is Marnell and more brain.
And this is the NyQuil and Pepto-Bismol sponsored episode.
So we're tired with nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, and diarrhea.
and
The nighttime sniffling, coughing, sneezing.
Yeah.
So you wake up on the floor.
Right.
Oh.
And so, as you know, we've been out of commission for a couple of weeks. I was traveling one week, and then Marnell had some emergency travel last week.
Yeah, and I did put it on the Facebook that my dad had a health issue. He had an aortic aneurysm a few weeks ago. And if you don't know what that is and it sounds dire, it's because it totally is dire. I think there's like a between 2 and 10% chance of making it to the ER.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and he not only made it to the ER, but then they life flighted him over to Harborview in Seattle, and he made that, and he made it to surgery, and he made it out of surgery, and then, you know, here we are a couple of weeks later, and he's headed to a recovery rehab center to get back on his feet, which he kind of already is. So 77 years old and just too stubborn to die.
And for those who don't know, Marnell and I are half sisters, although she's my sister of my heart.
Right.
But my take is too mean to die.
That too. But, you know, considering the longevity of our mother's side and now the kind of, too mean to die on my dad's side, I'm feeling pretty good about my life choices.
You're pretty much going to live forever.
Yeah, I'm immortal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
okay,
take that, Alcoholics Anonymous.
I'm going to talk a little bit out of class and not give away anything other than a couple of details that are not identifiable. But I had a patient with an undisclosed health issue today in an undisclosed specialty who basically told me that they had an exacerbation of their symptoms, finished their beer, went out and had a smoke, went back in and had another beer, and was totally fine.
Alrighty then.
And I was like, and that person is probably going to outlive me.
Who was it? George Burns? The guy who always played God.
Yeah, George Burns.
Yeah. George Burns, his secret to longevity was a cigar and like 3 martinis a day.
Well, it worked for him.
Yeah. There was a comedian who once, he had a joke about talking to a guy once, and the guy was like in his 100, like 110 or something like that. And they're like, well, what's your secret? And he's like, well, I drink a gallon of Thunderbird wine every day and I fry everything in fatback.
Oh, that's disgusting.
There has to be something said for genetics, you know? I mean, there's just some people who can abuse their body to no end. And then you see like runners drop dead of heart attacks in their 40s, you know?
Well, there you go. You know you're going to live forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go get myself a gallon of Thunderbird whiskey and some McDonald's after this. So, but no, my dad is doing much, much better. I was there with one of our other sisters. I didn't help out much. She did most of the heavy lifting, both physically and mentally, but I was kind of there for everyone's comic relief and my own special gallows humor that nearly gets me kicked out of hospital.
Very good.
It was okay. It's so funny. Like the doctor was talking about advanced directives, which is something that they do with you when you're 77 years old and you've gone through something like this and, you know, you're going to a rehab facility. So they're talking about advanced directives, and they were talking about, you know, well, who's allowed to make medical decisions for you in the case that you can't. And my dad is like, my wife. And they were like, what's your wife's name? And he coughed. And I looked over and I said, how do you spell that, Dad? Of course, everyone erupted in laughter.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So that's what I was there for.
Well, I'm sure it was much appreciated.
Yes, yes. If not by my dad, which it was, but by my sister, because she had somebody else to kind of take some of the burden off.
She has told me she did not realize what it was like to be a professional caregiver. And I said it's actually a lot easier because you're generally not taking care of people that you're intimately related to.
Yeah, I would imagine that it would be easier with a non-relative.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's perfect that we're segueing into Return of the Living Dead.
I was going to say, speaking of the living dead and the return of.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. It's perfect.
Hey, my dad loves my terrible sense of humor. That's all that matters.
Well, I was thinking earlier tonight that I'm a giant geek when the real reason that I want to get this podcast done is so I can go back and listen to Aim for the Head's take on this movie.
I know, right? I'm so excited. Like I've been really wanting to listen to it, but like you, I don't want to, I want to organically possibly have the same thoughts as them, not like be tainted by somebody else's opinion.
Did you listen to their Shaun of the Dead podcast?
I haven't yet.
So for anyone out there who's a Shaun of the Dead fan, they talked about some really fun Easter eggs that I certainly didn't catch. And now I'm going to go back and watch again.
Yeah, and you told me that, and I'm wondering if I caught them. I'm usually pretty good about that kind of thing.
Well, you'll have to listen to their podcast and let me know.
Definitely. All right.
So, Return of the Living Dead premiered on August 16th, 1985. And I can honestly say that I really think the last time I saw it was in 1985, before this watch.
I have seen it since then, but it's been on cable, so it has been heavily edited.
Oh, I bet.
Like, to the point where I'm not even sure I saw the striptease. Ever. Because I was like 6 when this movie came out, which unless our brother rented it on VHS like he did Porky's, and I saw it that way, I probably never saw it not on cable.
There was a lot more breast tissue in this movie than I remember seeing.
Oh, if I looked like that, I probably would too.
I know. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
That's awesome.
Okay, I guess we know what the pervy old ladies thought of the movie. Moving on.
Well, I read somewhere where the director, I think it was the director, was shocked by how many women went to see the movie when it came out.
Oh, really?
And he said that had he known that there was going to be that many women in the movie, they would have had Freddie naked too.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah.
Well, so how did you rate the movie?
So I'm, of course, a fan of campy old horror. I love anything that was probably on USA Up All Night. Like the movie Avocado Women of the Jungle or whatever we've mentioned on the podcast before. So I gave it a 3.9 bisected dogs.
Oh my God, that is really funny. That's the rating system that I use too.
Oh my goodness.
Except I said split dogs.
Okay. The dog thing was like so disturbing and sad. Like,
and then beating it with the crutch.
Oh, that was awful. Oh.
Well, I gave it 3.52 out of 5 split dogs.
Not bad.
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of campy horror movie as you are, so...
This was really teetering off the edge. It didn't go off the edge, but it was really hanging there for me. So when you had texted me, you were just like, "Oh my God, what did we do?" part, whatever you said, I was just like, oh no, because I hadn't watched yet. So
I think, oh my God, it's so bad is a direct quote.
but I mean, like all of the kind of campy, funny-ish, like low budget, mostly zombie, but a lot of B horror movies were. And you either look back at them and you love them for the campiness, or you look back and you're just like, oh, what trash.
Well, and I think this really fits the time frame. I mean, I think it was really appropriate for the time in which it was made.
Yeah, definitely. Even though I was 6, I had all older siblings. So when that happens, you tend to remember stuff at a younger age. And I think it definitely fits with the time period.
So our 20-something niece was visiting us, and I made her and my husband watch it with me. And I looked over at her and said, "Is it just as terrible stoned?"
I would think it wouldn't be.
I don't know. She had a pretty, like, appalled look on her face.
Depending on what you've taken, it could be a really bad trip.
Oh, no. It was legal.
Yeah, legal here.
So... Well, so the numbers are actually pretty impressive.
They are.
It had a $4 million budget, which I bet was a pretty big budget at the time. It made $14.2 million at the box office. That's not including any of the video marketing or video sales or the $3.99 that I paid on iTunes to watch it. And it has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Excuse me. And it was nominated for 4 Saturn Awards.
Well, and it's such a cult classic that someone started an internet campaign to have it released on DVD and Blu-ray. And
Oh,
of course,
really?
It was. Yeah.
Oh.
So, of course, now it's selling on DVD.
So another number that I thought was significant was that it has spawned 4 sequels.
That doesn't shock me.
I remember
actually
the
shocked.
second one, and I didn't watch it. I just remember hearing about it. But 4 sequels. There are 5 Return of the Living Dead movies.
I think I remember the next one.
The second one or the third one?
The third one.
I can tell you what they are. I wrote the names down. So it was Return of the Living Dead Part 2, Return of the Living Dead Part 3. I said I wrote it down, and now, of course, I don't have it in front of me. Return of the Living Dead 4 was subtitled The Necropolis, and Return of the Living Dead 5 was subtitled Rave to the Grave.
Maybe I don't. I'll have to go and look because, of course, this is the movie that George Romero and
John Russo.
This is when they had kind of their, I don't want to call it a falling out. They parted ways, but there was some legal action taken at some point. And
was there actually legal action? I thought they just kind of came to a gentleman's agreement about the way that they would work with the titling system.
So I think on IMDb it mentioned that George Romero sued to not have the Living Dead in the title, and the court system, the MPAA, somebody ruled in Russo's favor and allowed it. So Russo got the Living Dead, and George Romero just went on to call his stuff of the Dead, like Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And it's actually interesting that you associate George Romero more with Night of the Living Dead, and he didn't get Living Dead rights to that phrase.
Right. So there's actually, did you see that there was a documentary?
Yes.
That Okay, and it's
More
called More
brains.
Brains. And Russo kind of he has a rosier picture of. I think he probably commented he kind of said that there was a gentleman's agreement, and that he and George are friends to this day, and yada yada. So yeah, I don't know.
Did you watch More Brains, or did you just find a part of it on
I watched
YouTube?
about the first half an hour.
Ah,
Yeah.
you really did do your research. Good for you. And tell everybody when you watch this movie.
20 minutes ago. Yeah, so I accidentally fell down the rabbit hole last night of the series finale of The Big Bang Theory, and then the Johnny Galecki, Kaylee Cuoco, however you say her name, doing the kind of wrap up and everything, and then the original unaired pilot of The Big Bang Theory, and then Killing Eve. And I woke up at 4 this morning going, crap, I didn't watch.
And then you texted me and you were like, let's podcast at 6:30. And I thought, she's doing a rewatch. Little did I know it wasn't a rewatch.
It was a watch. Yep. I'm always last minute, so it's probably a really good thing I'm great under pressure.
Well, and your memory of the movie is going to be much, much better than mine because I watched it Friday and we're now talking Tuesday, so...
Right. And I do that all the time, though. Like, usually my rewatch is the night we podcast, but I didn't think I needed to rewatch this. I think this kind of spoke for itself. I don't think there's a whole lot of depth to the movie, which is fine. Is totally fine. It is what it is. And I'm sure if we were to go and watch the entire series of The Living Dead, it would get more and more in depth. You'd get a lot more callbacks. You'd get a lot more Easter eggs, things like that.
Oh man, I'm not sure that I could do it. So I look forward to hearing what Diana and Steve have to say on Aim for the Head, because I don't think I could do 4 more movies from the Return of the Living Dead series.
Not without a drinking game involved.
I am going to tell everybody right now, I'm so sorry. I'm still really sniffly and I may cough while we're doing this. I have really been fighting a horrible summer cold. So, yuck.
Ugh, and I was just traveling and in a hospital, and I managed to stay healthy. Yeah. Thank you, emergency.
All right. Go ahead.
4 of those a day and you're good.
4 of those a day. Do you realize that your body is just peeing off the extra 3?
That's fine. That means my body's working.
Yep. All right, so I didn't have anything about the title other than the little tidbit that you shared about the rights to The Dead versus The Living Dead.
Okay.
Did you have anything else about the title?
I don't. Yeah, no. Other than that.
So our writers were Rudy Ricci. I hope I'm saying that right. It's Ricci. John Russo, who we mentioned, and then Russell Strainer. I think I'm saying his name right too. Maybe it's Striner.
I think it's Strainer because I keep trying to say my last name, Steiner.
So I totally cracked up. Do you realize that he is the guy who played Johnny, Barbara's brother, in Night of the Living Dead?
I think that they all had small parts in the movie.
Yeah, but he's really recognizable. Like, I clicked on IMDb, saw his picture, and went, oh my God, we're coming to get you, Barbara.
No, I did not realize that.
Yeah, so I didn't have a lot about him other than that. Rudy Ricci worked on Night of the Living Dead and worked on Dawn of the Dead, which I thought was really interesting that he worked on a Romero property and a Russo property.
Right.
And then John Russo, he's actually really interesting. He's a prolific author as well as the writer of this movie. And he wrote 3 books on movie making that are kind of independent filmmaking Bibles. And one of them actually won an award.
Wow.
Yeah. So he has just tons of stuff to his credit. And of course, I've got my notes all scattered around here. Gosh, and I don't have any more written down about John Russo. That's funny.
Interestingly, in his credits, under the thanks credits, he is thanked in Serial Killers, the real life Hannibal Lecters.
Oh my God, we need to watch that.
I know, right? I really hope it's on Netflix, like that Bundy film.
Which, by the way, did you watch that? Now we're totally digressing. But
I did.
I loved it.
I did too. I can't believe how well Zac Efron did.
And it got a terrible review by some of the murderinos on some of the different My Favorite Murder groups that I'm on Facebook. They were like, oh, it was way too sympathetic. It portrayed him as such a good guy, and it didn't show the murders. And I thought, and I wrote, I actually thought it was legit not to show the murders. They weren't capitalizing on the horrific murder of multiple women.
Okay, and so I thought the same thing. I was like, I am so glad they showed something other than the murders, because there are tons.
It was a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, there's tons of other movies out there on Bundy where they're pretty graphic with their depiction of the murders. And if that's your thing, go watch that. But this was the girlfriend's story, basically. Yes. Yeah, so I loved it.
And I'm going to totally digress a little bit more, but I looked for her book. You can buy a used copy on Amazon for $3,000.
Whoa.
So then one of the murderinos on one of the groups that I was in said, oh no, you can read the PDF online.
Oh yeah, I'll bet.
So I read the PDF online in one night.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How long was it?
It was about like 150 pages.
Wow.
I actually thought the movie was better than the book.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. But I'm also of the Anne Rule, A Stranger Beside Me school of Ted Bundy. So,
yeah,
that's pretty classic and pretty good writing. And unfortunately, the woman who wrote The Phantom Prince just couldn't compete with that level of writing.
Yeah.
All right. And now we're totally off topic. I'm so sorry. But you brought it up.
I was just going through Russo's credits, and I don't know why I thought that he was dead. He is not. He is still working to this day. He's got a lot of things completed and in pre-production.
I wonder if you thought that because we lost Romero last year.
That could be it. I thought that Russo had died before Romero. Huh. He's what's funny is he's not only has a bunch of stuff that he's written and directed, but it looks like he's going to have some cameos in those things too.
Oh, fun.
My Uncle John is a Zombie is completed, and The Devil's Den is in pre-production. The Devil's Den kind of sounds like that Rob Zombie movie.
Proof positive that there will always be an audience for Return of the Living Dead and its ilk.
Yeah, it truly is a zombie. Every 20-ish years it comes back. It kind of peters out for a little while, and then all of a sudden somebody has a new take on the zombie genre and it explodes again.
It kind of feels like we're cycling out of the zombie genre right now, so it'll be interesting to see where things go.
Well, okay, so it's funny, like, about 10 years ago, all the rage was vampire stuff, and I'm sure it was partly to do with Twilight, or Twilight got caught up in it. But so we kind of go through this, and every once in a while werewolves pop up, with an American Werewolf in London or Paris, whichever one. And
the classic London.
Yeah. And the Underworld movies.
Oh,
where you have
those
vampires
were really
and
good.
Yeah, where you have vampires and lichens. So, like, it's kind of always seems like there's always one horror movie genre that's in vogue at a time, and we're kind of on the downslide of the zombies.
And I don't see anything coming up right now to kind of take its place.
I don't either.
The
It'll be
superhero
interesting.
movie, but
Yeah,
I'm
that's very
probably
true.
just thinking that because of coming off of Captain Marvel and Endgame.
Okay, so have you seen anything for Brightburn?
No, I saw an ad for it on Facebook tonight, but I didn't look at it.
Okay, so I this has been a question I have had since I first saw Superman, like in theaters. What if Superman was not a good guy? What if he was a bad guy? And that's what Brightburn is about. It's like a little Superman kid who, is messed up in the head and he's got superpowers. What do you do? Yeah, it looks super good. It looks very horror movie-ish.
Cool.
Not like superhero-y, like definite horror movie-ish.
Well, since we're going down this little bit of rabbit hole now, I will say Dark Phoenix looks really good too.
It does.
And I was a big fan of that storyline in the X-Men comic books back in the day, so
I I haven't watched like the last three X-Men movie. The last one I think I watched had Peter Dinklage in it.
he played Trask.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, onward with the Return of the Living Dead because I could digress all night.
Right?
So our director was a guy named Dan O'Bannon, who actually has 33 writer credits to his name. And he's only got 3 director credits, which I thought was really interesting.
I think he is in More Brains.
Oh, is he really? I mean, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised. So he wrote and directed a short in 1969 called Bloodbath. He directed Return in 1985, and then he directed a movie called The Resurrected in 1991, which was actually based on an H.P. Lovecraft story.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I, of course, remember the game Call of Cthulhu and all of the Cthulhu legends, so
Right.
that's kind of my grounding in Lovecraft. The other thing that was kind of interesting about Dan O'Bannon is that he was a writer who wrote for Heavy Metal magazine, and actually 2 of his stories got picked up for the movie Heavy Metal,
Huh.
including the segment called B-17, where they have all those downed bombers. I don't know if you
Interesting.
I don't know if you remember the movie. I loved the movie. So, and that's actually to me probably the most haunting segment of that movie. So I thought it was really interesting that Dan O'Bannon was behind that.
I honestly don't think I have seen the movie.
Oh my god, it's so good. It holds up and the soundtrack holds up. I think. Maybe we'll have to do Heavy Metal as a total one-off one of these days. It's
That would be
geeky.
fun.
It's not zombie-ish, but it's geeky. I mean,
It is.
B-17 kind of has some zombie feel to it, but
Maybe we can do that with Phil.
yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
I would
I
like
could see,
that.
I could see Phil being into it.
Yeah, I'll have to pose that to him.
That's funny.
So Dan O'Bannon and a couple of other things that I recognize just kind of looking through his credits. He actually wrote the screenplay for Alien in 1979, and he wrote the Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall in 1990.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a lot of credits for a lot of the Alien stuff. Alien versus Predator, Alien 3, Aliens.
And I think a lot of like gaming or cartoon franchises associated with Alien, that's the way it looked to me.
He is a writer for the movie Screamers. And if you want a great B plus horror movie, I highly recommend finding Screamers somewhere because I absolutely loved that movie.
I actually don't remember that movie at all.
So it's very futuristic, but it takes place like on another planet, and we've automated kind of our everything to the point that it'll actually build itself. And there's these there's these things that we use in war that are they're called screamers, and they, you know, whenever they detect movement or sound or something, they tunnel underneath the ground and come up, and I can't remember if they like bite you or explode or what, but they start evolving. The factory that makes them, like, they start getting smarter and smarter, and they start making like humanoid type screamers, and it's a really great movie. And it's got Peter Weller in it.
Ah, okay.
And a lot of people will recognize Peter Weller from RoboCop.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's his name? The guy we're talking about, not John Russo.
Dan O'Bannon.
Dan O'Bannon was credited for the screenplay for Screamers, and
I actually don't remember that at all.
I love that movie. Huh. I swear I've talked about it before. It's a great movie.
Maybe we'll have to do that one. I'll watch Screamers. You can watch heavy metal.
There we go. Oh, that's funny.
All right. So our featured cast.
Linnea Quigley, a.k.a. Trash. And Dianne, tell everyone why you picked Trash as our featured cast member.
Oh, I don't know if I said this to you, but I think I probably said it because she's got a hot body.
Yep, you totally texted that to me.
Which, I mean, we were talking about the excessive amount of breast tissue earlier, so yeah.
Right, and technically that is mostly all you see. You see your butt too, but if you thought you saw more than that, you are wrong.
I thought this was a really funny piece of shooting, so hit us up with it.
So apparently the censors would not go for full frontal nudity, so they made what is lovingly referred to as the Barbie crotch.
Which I have to say, it was very realistic. Like, I would not have realized that it was a prosthetic crotch until I read the notes for this movie.
It was. So
that's like a great band name, Prosthetic Crotch.
The Barbie Crotch.
That can be the album title.
Oh. And it can just be like, you can just have Ken dolls on the cover.
So she actually said that her worst makeup experience on any movie was getting fitted for the prosthetic crotch.
Yeah, she said so. What she said was, and I found it funny that they said they wrote it up as, you know, when she did her striptease in the graveyard, that she was fully naked and she was completely comfortable doing that, and she had a lot of hair, which was I forget, they said something like that was normal for the time. She was showing a lot of hair, which is normal for the time, or they showed a lot of hair or something like that. And I was like, wait, was it normal to have lots of hair, or was it normal to show lots of hair? The article is very non-specific, but so the censors were like, no, we can't have pubic hair. That's just obscene, because nobody has pubic hair.
And apparently a striptease in a graveyard is totally fine. It's just when you add the pubic hair that's problematic.
Right? So they were like, go shave. And so she goes and shaves.
Oh.
And they were like, wait, that's worse.
That is funny. I didn't see that anywhere.
So then they created a prosthetic cover for her, and she said that it was more humiliating than dancing naked or being told to shave or anything like that. And she also had problems on the set because it was essentially kind of glued to her body. So anytime she had to go to the bathroom, they had to redo her makeup.
Oh, that is really funny.
Yeah. The things you don't think about.
Well, and think about being essentially completely naked with this prosthetic glued to your body and then tripping through all of this muddy water.
Oh,
Ugh.
I really hope at some point they just gave her a bodysuit, a skin-tight bodysuit. Because, I mean, at some point she does kind of wind up all white, and I'm just hoping that's just a giant unitard. Oh, but like we said, if only I had the body.
Oh, she was very cute. She was definitely
Yes.
very cute. And so I think the picture that's on IMDb is probably a little older. I mean, obviously more recent than Return of the Living Dead, but still a little older. She still looks good.
She still looks very good, and she still goes to a lot of the cons because she is known as one of the original Scream Queens.
They call her the Queen of the Bees.
Yep. And she has over 125 acting credits, mostly B movies. I think she's probably best known for this movie. But she's got a couple of others that she's played some small roles in.
I thought Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers sounded like a movie that I really wanted to see.
Oh, there was a couple of them. And she's still working to this day. She has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things either in completion or announced.
And one of them is called Zombie 86. Is that what it is?
I think that's is that the series? 86 Zombies.
86 Zombies. Yeah, I wrote it down.
And it's a series. So
Yes.
she's in the pilot and she's in part 5. And I think that's part 6. I don't know my Roman numerals.
VI would be 6.
Okay. So V is 5. I know
V
that.
is 5. Yep.
When death comes to Dalton, a roadhouse waitress and her coworkers must turn the tables on a town full of flesh-hungry diners and stay a step ahead of the butcher himself.
It did not say where this was going to be released, right?
No.
We'll definitely have to watch for it. It could be our next Black Summer.
It's got 6 episodes in the can, so we'll see.
So
Yeah.
she wrote 2 books, one called Bio and Chainsaw, and the other, and I love this title, called I'm Screaming as Fast as I Can.
I love that too. She has also done a workout video. So if you would like to, let's see, what is the title of it? Oh, I had it.
So what would be really awesome while you're looking that up is if it was a workout video set to the soundtrack for this movie.
Linnea Quigley horror workout video.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
It could be. And, you know, if we all were that curious, the entire 1 hour is on YouTube.
Very good. I may have to find an hour to waste.
At least listen to it, I guess.
So the other thing that I thought was interesting, she is a vegan and an animal rights activist.
Yes.
And
she
it sounds
does a
like she
lot of work
actually
for
has,
PETA.
I was going to say, it sounds like, you know, give or take your feelings about it. She works a lot with PETA. So.
She is one of their, I think they call them lettuce girls. And she does a lot of, you know, going around and talking or like handing out flyers and stuff in front of places wearing only a lettuce bikini.
And she can still get away with it after all these years.
Apparently the horror workout works.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I need to invest
Definitely.
in YouTube Red and get that video.
Yeah, I think it's on regular YouTube. I think the entire hour is on regular YouTube. You can watch. Let's see. She oh, I love this tidbit about her. She wears a size 4.5 shoe.
I totally thought of you when I read that.
Okay, so I wear a size 6 and people call me Pegfoot. Seriously, people are like, how do you stay up on those tiny little feet? And I just can't imagine a four. I'm gonna have to like when next time I go to the store in the shoe section, I'm gonna have to look at even if they even carry 4.5. Like that's just absurd,
It's probably incredibly hard to find shoes.
right?
Yes.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
Let's see. She used to be in a band called The Skirts.
And there's some stuff on YouTube with her singing with another band. So
Ah,
I think she kind of does some jam sessions with some other rocker chicks.
good for her.
So she kind of has a whole bunch of roles that she has actually been in movies, and her role gets cut. It gets left on the cutting room floor.
Oh no.
So she was in Reservoir Dogs, but the part she was going to play was later removed from the script, so she didn't even get to film that one. She was in Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions. Her scene ended up on the cutting room floor, and she was in American Gigolo, but her role was cut from the film before it was finished.
I hope she got paid for all those roles.
I really hope so too.
I think I read somewhere that she got paid like $400 for this movie.
There was a salary thing for $400. I don't remember what it was. But one of her breakout roles was she was in a toothpaste commercial. And I absolutely love this about her. So when she first moved to Hollywood, one of her first jobs was working in a Jack LaLanne studio.
I remember Jack LaLanne.
Do you? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
We're so old.
Yes,
so
we are.
For those of you under 30, Jack LaLanne has a series of workout videos, and he was the original juice man. With the you can juice fruits and vegetables and drink it. And he and his wife are super ancient. And
I was going to ask if he's still alive.
Oh, now I have to look that up.
I know, I'm totally looking that up too.
I think his wife's name was Lily. Lily.
It says was. He died in 2011.
Oh.
Yeah.
How old was he when he died?
Pretty dang old, because he was born in 1914. So he was 97.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I just remember his infomercials when I was a kid.
Oh my God, there's a picture of him. He has arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger, man.
His Wikipedia picture is pretty handsome, too. Yeah, so she worked in a Jack LaLanne studio, and she was told that she would be great at modeling and acting, and the rest is Hollywood history.
And
Hollywood.
I was going to say Hollywood B-screen history.
Exactly. She has a movie coming up that I kind of want to see because I am a huge fan of Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, God.
It's called Clownado.
That sounds terrible.
It does, doesn't it? I love the tagline. It's about to get twisted.
That sounds awful.
In the best way. Who doesn't love Killer Clowns from Outer Space? If you have not watched it, do yourself a favor.
I haven't watched it. I'll have to find another hour to waste. I think if it's the choice between that and the Horror Queen workout, I'm going to be checking out Linnea Quigley. Or Linnea Quigley, excuse me.
So I have mentioned on this show and previously that I was an insomniac when I was a kid, and I used to sit up and watch USA Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried and Downtown Julie Brown. And apparently at some point I saw Linnea because she was on 5 episodes of Up All Night between 92 and 94.
Very good.
Yeah, so that's so funny how life has a little bit of symmetry to it like that.
Well, anything else about Linnea?
I'm sure there is a ton, but no.
You actually watched part of an interview on YouTube, right?
Okay, I did. And for someone who always plays the ditzy blonde who gets her boobs out, she is very articulate. She's a good interview. The interview was about one of her upcoming movies, and it was very obviously ripped from somebody's like VHS recording because it had the commercials and everything. So it was done in like 86 or 87, and yeah, she was very articulate. She was very smart. She seemed like she had it all together. So definitely, I don't want to say typecast. I think she goes out for these kind of roles intentionally, but that is not who she is in real life. She is a very astute woman, and it's paid off because to this day she is still acting.
And she found a niche.
Yep. She will have it on her gravestone that she is a scream queen, like she'll be remembered. So good for her.
Well, I think she was one of my favorite parts of the movie, and not just because she was cute. I just really liked the character. I thought the character was really funny.
Yeah, I did too. I love how she just like was totally fine with like running around naked.
Yes. I think if I was going to pick one other cast person to feature, it would be the guy who played Spider, because I really liked that character.
Yes, I did too. I was just looking at him right before we got on, and I was like, I feel like I know him from a ton of stuff.
Don't you? And there wasn't really anything else that stood out, but I just remember really liking him when I first saw this movie, and I liked him again when I watched it.
Miguel A. Nunez Jr. Ooh, and he got handsome.
He was pretty good looking in this, although he was skinny.
Yeah.
God, skinny as hell.
He was kind of like the smartest one of the bunch.
I agree.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going up and locking myself in the attic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and the chick with the Pat Benatar blue hair. Yeah. She was very smart too.
So a little tidbit about her. Apparently one of her lines was, go choke your chicken or go choke a chicken.
Right.
And she didn't know what it meant.
Oh,
and I don't
really?
know if they didn't explain it to her, but it took 45 takes for her to get it out.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
I love that.
And so since this is a G-rated podcast, we're not going to explain that. You'll have to look it up.
She was so innocent on this horror zombie film that she did not know what go choke a chicken meant. Her name was Jewel Shepard.
She was pretty funny.
That was. And I got that from the IMDb page. There are a ton of cool trivia things on the IMDb page. Some of them repeat, but there's some really cool stuff.
I didn't realize that this movie had such a huge following.
I don't think I did either. I knew it was a cult classic, but I had no idea that it was like Evil Dead level cult classic.
Right. I think that's a good way to describe it, and I have to agree. I didn't think it was at that level either, but it apparently really is.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into our goods, bads, and uglies, I'm just going to share a handful of things from Whisperer's Corner. So I feel like I need to be an attorney to understand this. But yesterday, Frank Darabont's lawsuit against AMC got more complicated because AMC is now trying to wedge Frank Darabont against his co-plaintiff, which is the talent agency CCA, by saying that CCA sold Darabont down the river for bigger packaging fees.
Wow.
That was that was the upshot of a very long article, and I thought, I'm speaking these words and I still don't entirely understand what that means.
Was that the Deadline article?
So that was yesterday, and then today there was a Deadline article saying that Darabont hit back and said basically AMC is trying to delay their trial with specious arguments about the whole case. So there's been a lot of back and forth in the last 24 hours about the lawsuit that Frank Darabont has against AMC.
Huh. Good strategy, divide and conquer.
Well, like I said, I feel like I need to be an attorney to completely understand it. There was a Forbes article about Fear the Walking Dead. And the author actually said that he felt like the first 4 episodes of Fear were a significant improvement over season 4.
That's saying a lot because season 4 was amazing.
So to be fair, this author really felt like season 4 took a big quality hit from season 3. He liked season 3 better. That's not where I'm coming from. That's not where you're coming from. So it'll be really interesting if he thinks that there was such a huge improvement in season 5, what we think.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited really
to see how Dwight fits in.
Do you realize we're basically 2 weeks away?
Yes. When we weren't able to podcast last week, I was like, oh man, we're running out of time.
We are, and we've got Good Omens on the pike too. Mm-hmm. We're going to be busy.
Yeah. I did not crack a book while I was with my dad.
Well, it sounds like you were pretty tired.
Oh, exhausted. Hospitals are exhausting. Travel is exhausting. Seattle traffic is exhausting.
Put all of those together.
And you're exhausted.
Well, one more thing in Whisperer's Corner, and then we'll get to our goods, bads, and uglies, because we're basically an hour in, and we've barely talked. But we've talked nonstop. So the only other thing that I have in Whisperer's Corner, and this is a comic book spoiler, so fair warning, but the rumor is that the latest issue has a blank variant cover, and the rumor alleges that something really huge happens. Do you want me to say what that thing is?
Sure.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, spoiler. The allegation is that Rick dies.
Oh, like he did in the show?
I don't think like he did in the show. I think an actual death, but...
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's not really dead. I keep forgetting that.
And what they're saying in the article that I read is that a blank cover has only been used 4 times in the history of the Walking Dead comics, and each time it's been something really huge. Like, there was a blank cover variant for issue 100, which is the issue where Glenn was killed.
Ooh.
So, I haven't read it. I'm holding out for the graphic novel form, but apparently there's something really huge going on in the world of the Walking Dead comics right now.
Wow.
So that's it. Whisperer's Corner was actually pretty sparse. A lot of legal mumbo jumbo, but...
I was going to say, Phil did message us and Whiskey Cavalier was canceled.
Oh, right. I saw that.
Maggie's coming back.
Well, maybe not. I mean, Lauren Cohan was really careful to say she had a lot of other options on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So...
I don't know.
I mean, we're going to get her for at least part of season 10. It sounds like she's going to have a couple of episodes in season 10, but I don't know how much we're going to see.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not gloating that Whiskey Cavalier was canceled, but I'm not surprised. I wasn't very impressed with it.
I was not either. And not anything to do with Lauren. You could have put anyone in the 2 lead roles, and I just...
Yeah, I totally agree. You could have put 2 great actors in the lead roles, which they did, and it would have flopped the same way. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so scratchy. All right, so let's get into our goods, bads, and uglies.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so I don't think this has been done. Well, maybe it's been done in a different way. My good was intelligent zombies.
So it's interesting that you brought that up because I actually highlighted that in the little wiki entry that I printed for tonight. It was the first ever to show fast zombies and the
Mm-hmm.
first film to show zombies that were able to speak.
So the only other movie that I can think of was Warm Bodies, where you had somewhat intelligent zombies.
Oh, right.
And maybe a little bit of Shaun of the Dead, because Shaun of the Dead, people seem to kind of return to the things that they did before. You know, they went into the grocery store, they went back to their work or their home or something.
I don't know, but having just listened to Aim for the Head's take on Shaun of the Dead, I think it was just kind of, they did that because it was just showing that we're all kind of zombies already. We're all kind of ground down in this monotony of modern life.
Yeah. Was it in Shaun of the Dead, or was it another movie where they talk about the zombie apocalypse and then like a whole herd of kids goes by just mindlessly staring at their phones?
I think that was Shaun of the Dead, but it's been long enough that since I've watched it that I would have to rewatch.
Well, and at the end of Shaun of the Dead, the two are playing video games, the one's a zombie and
right.
Yeah. So, it had never been done before, and it's very rarely been done since, and to this extent. Warm Bodies had an entirely different take on intelligent zombies. But I really, really liked, problem solving zombies. I will get into, the continuity of everything later on.
Okay.
But I just, when the one zombie, used the pulley system to pull open the doors and,
what they call him? They called him Tarman.
Tarman, yes. Yeah. And send more paramedics.
Yes.
Yeah. I loved having, somewhat intelligent zombies, at least the fresh ones, and we will get into that.
So you actually made me think of iZombie. That also had a take on intelligent zombies.
Oh, yeah.
But it was totally different from Warm Bodies and from this movie.
Yeah, definitely. There's a book series I read, and I can't remember what it's called, but the quote-unquote zombies, or ghouls, as they call them in the book, are just the average Joe, but they sustain themselves by eating human flesh.
Which is more similar to iZombie.
Right. But iZombie has brains.
Right. And apparently, that's another thing about this movie. So this was the first movie that really popularized the idea of zombies having to eat brains as opposed to just eating flesh.
Right.
Which I didn't realize. I didn't realize that it was kind of the precursor for fast zombies, speaking zombies, and brain-eating zombies.
Yeah, this was light years ahead of its time, which is probably why it's a cult classic. But yeah, I had no idea either, and it's so funny that it sort of set up the genre. We take our rules from this movie and The Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm. But I find it very interesting that you could not easily dispatch a zombie with a blow to the head.
Right. You couldn't even chop its head off.
Right. We saw that with the cadaver.
Yeah, you could dismember it and it would still be moving around. Which, by the way, the body bag full of parts, do you know how they accomplished all the movement inside? When they were like, oh, it's a bag of rabid weasels. So, those little monkeys with the cymbals?
Oh, my gosh, really?
It was a bunch of those with the symbols removed.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's genius.
Yeah, that was really well done.
I love practical effects.
There were some good practical effects in this movie.
Definitely. So what was your good?
So I am completely a child of the 80s. I mean, you have to realize I was 14 years old when I saw this movie. The end with the nuclear warhead.
Yeah.
So this movie really effectively played on our very real fears of a nuclear war around that time. I mean, I can totally remember the movie the day after. I remember the video for 99 Luftballons ending with this big conflagration. I mean, I totally remember being freaked out about a nuclear war. So for this movie to end with a nuclear bomb, it was perfect. I loved the ending.
I didn't even think of that, but yeah. Because this kind of reminded me of it. I saw a lot of other horror movies that have branched out from this, and in Resident Evil, they nuke Raccoon City. Sorry, I shut my mic off. One thing that I did notice is how the one character, the old guy,
Frank.
Was it Frank? Yeah. Oh, maybe it was Bert. I can't remember, but there was a lot of
Bert was the guy who owned the medical supply company. Okay. Frank was like the guy who was training Freddy.
Okay, so Frank was very, very suspicious of authority, and especially things around the army, the military. He's always like, oh, the army,
Right.
And I find it interesting that it ended with the nuclear fallout, and so the chemical that created the zombies in the movie was called 2,4,5 trioxin, and it was made by the Darrow Chemical Company, which was made to sound like the Dow Chemical Company, which we all know. Now, Dow made a chemical defoliant in the 1960s, commonly known as Agent Orange.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 mix of 24D and 24,5T. And so it was used to strip jungles in the Vietnam War. Agent Orange was sprayed in Vietnam and on Gagetown Army Base in New Brunswick, Canada. It caused a lot of adverse health effects and is no longer used, although it was used extensively in New Zealand up until the 1980s, where it was manufactured in New Plymouth and sold under the name of Tordon Brush Killer. To avoid being sued by the Dow Chemical Company, the makers of Return of the Living Dead created the name Darrow, which sounds like Dow when pronounced, but is not spelled the same.
Huh.
So it's funny you picked up on the nuclear Cold War stuff of the time, and I picked up on all the
chemical and suspicion and
around the military. Yeah, those were highly prevalent in the movie and for the time.
Very appropriate for the time.
Definitely.
So, what was your bad?
So, like I said, this really teetered off the edge for me. It was a little too slapsticky for me. And I know that Russo has said that he actually went with the more slapsticky comedy because he wanted to distance himself from George Romero's movies. So I kind of get what he was doing, but it was a little too slapsticky without being funny enough. And maybe it's just because I'm watching it in the year 2019. But it was a little too shticky for me.
It took itself pretty seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time that it was very campy and slapsticky, there were some moments where it kind of took itself seriously.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's funny because our bads were really similar. So my bad was basically it was so bad that it was good.
exactly.
And it was like the campy mortician, that character cracked me up. The scene
Um,
where Freddie and Frank are dead when they're examined by the paramedics, but they're not dead.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. And then the classic lines, you said one of them, send more paramedics, and then the other was send more cops. I remembered that line from way back. That's like the one line that I associate with this movie is send more cops.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And I kept going, where do I know the mortician guy from?
So
And
where? Because he
um,
looked totally familiar to me too, and I didn't look him up.
so what I know him from, and it was actually such a bit role that I'm really surprised I remembered it. Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
Isn't that weird? It's
That's
just like
hilarious.
it's such an iconic movie for the 80s
Well,
that
and he's got such like his facial features and his kind of bulging eyes, and I mean, he's just got a very distinctive look.
he does. So did you do any reading on his character?
Well, so I read the Nazi reference. Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Like
was kind of crazy.
there's a whole bunch of things that point to him being an escaped Nazi war criminal. His name in the movie was very similar to one of the kind of Nazi doctors that did experiments. And now I can't find the name.
I've got it here somewhere too. Ernie Kaltenbrunner. Kaltenbrunner. And Ernie the mortician had a photo of Eva Braun on the wall of his embalming room, can speak German, and carries a Walther P-38 pistol.
And he was listening to like a German symphony or something when he was doing the embalming. Yeah. And then the other thing about his character was so there's a lot of things that say that the characters Bert and Ernie were a call out to Sesame Street,
which Dan O'Bannon totally denies.
Yep. He did not put that together. He claims he did not put that together until it was pointed out to him.
Mm-hmm. So in the same spot in not IMDb, in Wikipedia, I just was seeing this little factoid and I thought this was really funny. So Frank was supposed to become a zombie and join the zombie mob, but the guy who played Frank didn't want to do any of the scenes in the rain in LA. So he was the one who suggested that Frank incinerate himself.
Which I love.
Yeah, I thought that was a great scene.
You know, it was so self-sacrificing. You don't see that in zombie movies. Normally people are trying to hide their bites, but this guy's like, no, I don't want to infect anyone else. I'm just going to go climb in the incinerator.
And I'm sorry, but the song was perfect. It was perfect. I think it was called Burn the Flame, if I remember right.
The music was actually really great.
Well, so that is, I'm going to go ahead and just take it away. That was my ugly.
Oh, good.
So the soundtrack was my ugly because I can remember rocking out to that soundtrack when the movie was current. And like the Cramps were a huge band when I was that age. The Damned was a huge band when I was that age, at least in the circles that I ran in. And I mean, the song Party Time by 45 Grave, that was such a great song. I love the soundtrack. And that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about going back and watching this movie again, was it brought all of it back, and I still love the soundtrack.
I am not huge into punk, but I could listen to a few of these songs.
Well, and this was kind of weird because it definitely had... You know, it certainly was not hardcore punk. It was really kind of offbeat punk.
Okay.
There was very little on the soundtrack that was hardcore.
That's probably why I liked it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm like I'm so bland. If it plays on the radio, it's good.
You're more of a Cramps fan and not so much a Dead Kennedys fan.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So what was your ugly?
Okay, so I told you we would get back to the intelligent zombie thing and the continuity.
Oh, so it was a bad ugly.
It was kind of a bad ugly. So my ugly was the continuity or lack thereof in the effects. So, like the zombies with no lips being able to talk and enunciate, I didn't like that.
Like the torso zombie?
Right, and Tarman.
Right.
They both, were able to speak and be understood without lips or probably tongues or anything. And then like this like entirely defleshed skeleton had perfect eyes, like just some of the effects were a little wonky for me. But then there were some really, really good practical effects. Like I said, the monkeys and the symbol monkeys in the bag. Mm-hmm. And then the scene where the acid rain is coming down and it's dripping down into the soil and it's going down into the coffin. I just love how we followed that down. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they built a model with kind of like an ant farm with glass sides where you could see it all trickle down in there. And it was a really great practical effect. So I didn't like a lot of the effects, but there were some of them that were they stood out and they were great.
It was really uneven.
It was.
That's probably
a good way to put it. So it's funny that we had talked about the director, Dan O'Bannon, who did so much with the Alien movies, because one of the things that they used for Tarman was it's called methocel. It's a thickening agent used in milkshakes.
Oh.
So that is also the same stuff that's dripping off the xenomorph in Alien.
That makes sense.
I
can visualize that. It makes me never want to have a commercial milkshake again.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was also the main ingredient in The Blob for the movie The Blob in 1988. So I just thought it was super interesting that Dan O'Bannon was part of both movies. And I looked, and he's not part of like the visual effects or the art, the set design or anything like that on Return of the Living Dead.
I wonder if any of the FX people were the same. I didn't watch.
Yeah, I don't know, but this milkshake thickening agent seems to be a very prevalent thing in horror movies, movie makeup.
All right, I'm going to be a lot more picky about milkshakes from here on out. A lot more picky. If I'm going to expend the calories to have a milkshake, it's not going to have that garbage in it.
It's so tough to get a good milkshake in this. Like, the only place is the Hot Bite, and they're only open like 3 months out of the year, and it's like an hour wait. Yeah, I really got to earn that milkshake.
There's an espresso joint up here that has ice cream, and they do milkshakes, so I think I know where I'm going to get any future milkshakes.
McDonald's is so much easier, but I haven't had a McDonald's milkshake in forever.
But now I'm going to think Tarman.
I always think of the xenomorphs every time, like I see like a commercial milkshake like that. I think of the xenomorphs in Alien.
That's disgusting.
Super funny. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. But yeah, so my ugly was both good and bad, and because the effects were both good and bad. But it's kind of like The Evil Dead. I love The Evil Dead, and same thing. They had a lot of what do we say? Unbalanced, uneven effects. So, but for the time, using no CGI or anything like that, most of the effects were practical.
Fair point.
Yep. They did well with their $4 million.
Yes, they spent their probably big horror budget very well.
Mm-hmm.
All
So do
right.
you
I was just going to ask you if you've got any rotting
writing
potpourri.
potpourri?
I've got a little bit. So, one of the first things that really struck me when I looked at like the group of kids that were hanging together, what an odd mix of cliques.
I would say so. That was my first inclination too. But then again, if you're growing up in the 80s in, I want to say small town. I don't know if Louisville,
No, we
Kentucky is
were
a small town.
very separate.
Yeah, but it's the people that you grew up with. So, like, you didn't start developing cliques until later in middle school and high school. And so it is quite possible that some of these kids, you know,
I don't
did
know. I
hang
mean, you
together.
had hardcore punks, preppies, and like more mod types, like pretty and pink types, kind of hanging out with each other.
That's very true.
That's definitely not how I grew up in the 80s. I mean,
It's
we
like they
were
were,
very much like the preppies on one side, the punkers on one side, the goths on one side.
you all had your own tables in the cafeteria.
Yes. Yes. And very, very rarely did lines between those tables get crossed. I'm not saying it's a good thing. It just really kind of struck me about the odd mix of kids that were hanging out together in this movie.
I think it's because I was the kid that like just hung with whoever, you know. I didn't actually have a group. I hung with, you know, the gearheads and the preppies and the chess club nerds and, you know.
Oh, I always say if husband and I had met when I was in high school, we would never be together.
What was your husband like in high school?
Oh, he was a total stoner.
Oh, that's funny.
He was like a heavy metal head stoner.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And
I just
I was a wannabe goth and a drama type. So
I was gonna say I've said it before. I'll say it somewhere on the podcast. You coming home from college with your sweet sweet leather jacket with the fringe.
yep.
Loved it.
Yep.
So I loved the character Suicide
Mm-hmm.
when he's in the graveyard and he's like, you know, be respectful of other people's graves, and he's like, I've got something to say. It's just he was all like deep and broody, you know, for a guy named Suicide.
Who looked so ridiculous.
It did, yeah.
Yeah,
Little,
he did not do hardcore punk well.
a little over the top.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they were trying to hit all the buttons.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that because that's kind of what I was wondering is did they have such a broad range of kids hanging out together because they were trying to get like all of the cliques into the movie theater?
Yeah, everyone wants to see their representation on the
Yes.
screen.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie that kind of does that, where you're like, those people would never hang out together in real life. I think it might have been Dream Child. Yeah, I don't know. It was one of the later ones where they were all campy. But yeah, I totally see that.
Well, so another thing that I saw, which I found when I was just doing research about this movie, this question was totally asked on Google. I can't believe it. It comes up as a real Google search.
I saw it.
Is Return of the Living Dead a true story?
Yeah. So when I read that today, I was thinking, do you remember before the internet where you had no idea that people were just that dumb? Like on a large scale. Yeah, you had some dumb friends that you hung out with, but like on a large scale that question is asked so much of Google that is the first thing that comes up.
It was pretty bad. I mean, yes, there is the scene in the film where Frank swears to Freddy that it's based on that Night of the Living Dead was based on a true story, and that Romero had to change the facts around so he wouldn't get sued, and yada yada yada.
Okay.
It's
now,
unbelievable to me that people would actually believe that.
Having said that, look at all the conspiracy theories that people, some media outlets float today that people actually take action on
Okay, that's
violently.
true. I actually saw someone drive past me with an InfoWars bumper sticker the other day. So good
Yeah, I
point.
mean,
Good point.
so there are people out there that are like, yeah, totally, the government is completely covering up a zombie outbreak.
I have no faith left in humanity. None. Zero.
We need a good zombie apocalypse to happen.
Right? That
And
the
again,
government can't cover up.
I say that knowing full well I will be in the 90% that go within the first few weeks.
Yes. The first few days.
And I'm okay with that. Oh, depending on if they're fast zombies or slow zombies.
So, did you catch the name of the cemetery?
Resurrection.
I saw that when I was reading Wikipedia and I thought, oh my god, that's so funny. I completely missed that. It was perfect.
The guy answers the phone, Resurrection Funeral Home or something like that. And that's where I caught it.
Let's see, what else? Oh, so did you realize, and I didn't realize this as it was happening, my husband pointed it out to me. Trash actually talks about her most horrible fantasy about the way that she could get killed, and it's actually the way that she gets killed.
Yep. Did you know the movie was originally supposed to be filmed in 3D?
Oh no.
Could you imagine this in 3D?
I am denied the privilege of seeing 3D movies because my husband won't go and see them. I know you said you can't watch them because you just can't see them.
Yes, I have one eye that looks in a slightly different direction. I have to point it out to you for you to notice, so I'm not all weird and cross-eyed or anything. But it's just enough that my brain has turned that eye off, so that just enough so that I don't see double. If I really, really relax my eyes, I can see double, but it makes it to where I do not see 3D.
So I am denied not in fact. You are denied in fact.
Yes, I cannot see 3D, and I cannot parallel park.
I can't parallel park either, and I can't blame it on not seeing 3D.
Although the backup cam on the truck helps so much.
So another thing about Rotting Potpourri. So as much as I said that Trash was really cute, it did kind of drive me nuts that she was stumbling around in her leg warmers and little else through most of the movie.
It got a little gratuitous.
Yeah,
I will say that.
It did.
I mean, they did try to put almost like a kimono or something over her for a little while, but that lasted 2 scenes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, gratuitous is a good word. So the torso zombie, the one that they lashed down onto the slab in the morgue, it totally made me think of Bicycle Girl. And
yes!
I know that Greg Nicotero does tribute zombies, and I was wondering if Bicycle Girl was a tribute zombie to this zombie. I looked it up and I couldn't find anything anywhere.
I feel like I've read that somewhere before, that Bicycle Girl was a tribute zombie, and I don't know who, but this would make total sense.
All right, Thomas O'Mara, you just Steven that right out for us.
Oh, that's funny. So the nuclear cannon at the end of the film was a World War II German howitzer.
Oh, that's interesting, especially with the World War II references with Ernie.
Right. And so it's so funny. A howitzer is actually what they use for avalanche control here.
Oh.
Yeah, on I think Mount Juno, it's to control the avalanches that come down over Thane Road. That's what they do.
Super interesting.
In fact, we almost started a war with Canada because of somebody's terrible aim.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. That was fun. That was during the Palin administration.
We won't even go there.
Canada's like, hey, what's that shooting all about?
Well, what else? You got anything else?
Oh, like I said, there is a ton of really, really cool tidbits on the IMDb page. I encourage you to check it out because a lot of it's super funny.
I feel like, once again, for not having a lot to say and for feeling like I don't have a lot to say when we do movie reviews, we have talked to death.
Please, we could talk about anything for hours.
It's true.
The question is, will you listen to it for
Spooky
hours?
Chef.
Spooky Chef.
So the only little bit of feedback that I had from our Facebook page is that Victoria Morris did say she wanted us to podcast the last episode of Black Summer, that she really enjoyed it.
Do you think we should?
I don't know. Should we do that next week?
I think so.
I just rewatched it because our niece was visiting and I was like, have you seen it? And she said no. And I made her watch the first episode. I didn't make her. I mean, she was willing to go along for the ride. And then for the rest of the weekend, she was like, Black Summer, we need to watch Black Summer.
So remember what you sent me about Black Summer? The article?
It was the
number.
Yes.
It was the number one thing on Netflix for
April.
Mm-hmm. I had because like none of my people, none of my friends or anything have watched it at all. And like everyone has Netflix. And if you don't have Netflix, you have somebody's password.
Right. I'm still not convinced they're going to do a season 2. I hope they do, but I'm not convinced that they're not going to be happy to just say, well, that was nice. We got a lot of viewership and let's move on.
And like I've said, I would be totally happy with a season 2 with a follow-up with our characters that we left off with. But I would also be happy if they rebooted it with like all new people from their perspective, or maybe a mix of the two. You know, we have a couple bleed over characters that die within the first couple of episodes. Like any of that would be awesome. It's a great story.
I thought it was really satisfying to have the survivors that we did. And I am just going to leave it at that in case we do decide to podcast about it next week.
Right.
But that's about all I had.
That's what I got.
Well, I think let's wrap this puppy up and get it to Rob for editing and posting.
All right, everybody. So Linnea Quigley's birthday is on the May 27th. So happy birthday to her this coming week.
How old is she going to be?
She was born in 58. So 61?
I'm going to let you do the math.
Sure. We'll call it 61. So yeah, happy birthday to her and happy 4th of July to everybody else.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, but aren't you kind of skipping Memorial Day?
Oh, am I? Something like that. I don't know. Everyone's at work is talking about 4th of July. Because I think everyone's taking off. I think it's on a Tuesday?
Don't rush the summer away. We're not even into June. Don't be wishing people happy 4th of July.
I just know those jerks are leaving me alone in the office on the day between the weekend and 4th of July.
Too funny.
I will be the lone man standing there. But considering I just went, hey, I'm leaving for a week. Catch you later. My work is very understanding.
Well, you kind of had extenuating circumstances.
Right.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up and we'll be back at the same place next week.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
No more life events.
Let's kind of keep it quiet for now.
Yeah, I think so. But until then, just remember, take it one dead day at a time. All right, everyone.
All right. Have a good week.